I started out playing FPS games, right? Free FPSs online. A lot of my friends had jobs
Mm-hmm.
over the summer, and I didn't. So I was intensely bored. And I was in a match one day where, I was not very good at these games. I was trying my best, and my team was getting absolutely annihilated. And
Okay.
I had never seen anything like this. And I caught a glimpse of the person on the other team who was annihilating us, and they were flying through the air. They were
Okay.
flying through the air. They were getting headshots just one after another. It was unbelievable. We had absolutely no chance. And that was how I discovered game hacking.
Okay.
And this, I felt like my eyes had opened to a completely other world. So I dove in. I got into a bunch of forums, game hacking forums, figured out that this is an entire industry,
Yeah.
and people were making money off of this. And it was still relatively new. I mean, game hacking as an idea or a skill set was not new, but applying it to multiplayer games like this was still very shoddy. And so I got into that. Um, Bought myself a C++ book, specifically C++ for dummies,
Yeah.
and spent the summer teaching myself to write some of the worst C++ code you'll ever read. But I learned about memory addressing and how to find elements of the game that were stored client side, like health points,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being able to modify those values on runtime, and very cheap and dirty tactics that made it a lot more fun to hack the game than actually play it.
Okay.
And after a certain point, though, I learned a lesson, which is that games aren't very fun when you're winning all the time.
Yeah.
And so I took that knowledge that I had and I started applying it elsewhere. I started learning about botnets
Mm-hmm.
and keyloggers and all different kinds of malware, SQL injection, little ways, very piecemeal ways of doing what I only knew as hacking. I didn't know better than that. I didn't realize that there was an entire industry of penetration testing around that. But I I dove in head first and spent the next few years honing that skill set. Is what
Oh,
I'll say.
nice, nice. So that was when you were 13. So you were just playing a bunch of video games and your theme was getting annihilated. And then
Hmm.
you saw this guy just god mode on the game, being
Yep.
using like no clip and stuff on Counter Strike. uh,
Yep. Yep.
did you play Counter Strike, by the way?
I played Counter Strike a bit. The games that I did most of my well engaged in most of my shenanigans with were Combat Arms, and there was another game called Crossfire,
Yeah,
and
Crossfire.
they were very they were free to play. I didn't have any money because I was 13, so that was really all I had.
Yeah,
Um, Call of Duty was not quite popular yet, so weren't
yeah.
a lot of options.
Yeah, I also remember when I was young, I was playing like a version of Counter Strike Source that was a non Steam version. So I guess it was just a pirate version of the game. Um, and I remember seeing those guys flying through the air and just like aimbotting everyone, like just giving
Hmm.
instant headshots and flipping all over the map. And I was like, how the heck are these guys doing this?
Yeah.
And when I discovered like those little bat scripts where you can just do bunny up through the map and giving and see through the walls and stuff, I was actually very curious as well. But there was like a big distance from me from seeing that and then trying to transpose that into hacking in itself. I didn't, for some reason, that didn't click for me at the time. Why do you think that, like, opened your mind to that world at the time? The thing, it was just like out of curiosity. Do you want to be able to do that God mode thing through the game as well? What do you think was the reason why you delve into that?
Um, I think so. When it comes to things I want to learn about or things that interest me, I have a bit of an obsessive personality.
Okay,
So I'm really never satisfied with how much I know,
okay,
which is I consider that a strength and a weakness.
yeah,
um,
sometimes,
that has right that has definitely bitten me before.
yeah,
But I just I discovered this, and I realized that there was more to it. It was like I don't want to call it an underground world because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that sophisticated or that shady,
Mm-hmm.
but
Oops.
it was a community
Yeah.
of people who seemed to be interested in the same kinds of things that I was interested in, and not just game hacks, but technology in general.
Yeah.
So understanding how computers worked, understanding how networks worked,
Yeah.
how how to maintain this rat race sort of between developers who were implementing things like anti-cheat engines,
Mm-hmm.
and how one patch for a game would come around and they would, for instance, patch a wall hack, which I was never good at writing, by the way. I have to clarify this. I very few hacks ever actually. I was only able to engineer so many myself. I was never good at wall hacking. That required like experience with direct 3D
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. I was not a game designer by any means, but the values based stuff I could do. I knew other people who were that smart and were able to do that stuff, but I never got to that point. But even knowing those people and feeling some camaraderie with them,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like they were like me, was really all it took. Having a community, having people who you can sync with.
Yeah.